Okay, now we're going to create the sloper for our pants, the Oaktag sloper from our pants. So the first thing you want to do is cut out a piece of Oaktag large enough to trace one of your pant legs onto. We're going to do it separately. We're going to do the back pant leg and then the front pant leg. The reason we do that is because both pant legs share part of a side seam. And when we trace off our sloper and we cut it out, if we were to do it all together, we'd have to cut through that side seam, and we don't want to lose any of that side seam to the front or the back. We don't want the front to be a little bigger or the back to be a little smaller or vice versa. So we're going to do this one pant leg at a time. So take your piece of Oaktag and tape it down to your table. Make sure it's good and secure. So that's ready to go. Once you've done that, take your trouser draft and go ahead and place it right on top. Okay? Again, we're doing one pant leg at a time, and you should be able to see through your pattern paper where everything is. Make sure your draft isn't hanging off one of the edges or anything. You don't want to have the whole thing almost traced off and find out you don't have enough Oaktag on one side or something. So place it on there. Make sure if it's on there perfectly. This looks pretty good. Just checking. Yep. Okay. So now go ahead and tape that down. We don't want this moving at all. So now here we go. We're going to use our needle point tracing wheel to do this. And we're just going to systematically work our way around the pattern. Okay? So I'm going to start here at intersection of inseam and the pant hem. Okay? Because some of these lines are straight, we don't need to trace the whole line. Okay? We just need to do intersections of them. The ones that are curved, I will trace the whole line. Alright? So in this case, I'm going to trace my hem line, just about an inch or a half inch intersecting, and then the inseam that intersects with that. I'm going to move down here to my crease line. I'm going to trace my hem line there, and the part of the crease line that intersects with that, and then move to the side seam of the pant, trace the hem there, and the side seam that intersects with it. Move up. I'm at my knee line. I'm going to trace off where my knee line intersects with my hem, or with my side seam. And I'm going to trace off side seam where it intersects with my knee line. Keep moving up. Now this is a straight line all the way up. So I'm at my crotch line here. I'm going to trace off my crotch line that intersects with side seam, and also side seam that intersects with crotch line. Okay, we're at hip line now. I'm going to trace off my hip line where it intersects with side seam, and then also side seam. I'm moving up to that notch that's 2 inches above my hip line. Okay, I'm now going to trace off that notch, and I'm going to trace off side seam where it intersects with that notch. Okay, these curves, I know I said that we're going to trace off curves. These ones we don't need to, because I know the measurement on the curve ruler to get those again. So if you want to, you can trace off the curve. It's not necessary. I'm just going to trace the top part of it off where it intersects with my waist, like so. Okay. Now we're at the waist of our back panel. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to trace my whole waist because it does move or have a curve to it. So go ahead and trace along your whole waist. And back at side seam. That's good. Now let's get our darts. We're going to trace off wherever our dart legs and fold line of our darts intersect with the waistline. There. There. And then let's come down here to the dart tip. We're going to mark exactly where we cross our dart tip, and then the center of the fold line where it intersects with that dart tip. Okay. Alright, so crotch, it's flat right here and then curves. I'm just going to do the whole crotch. So start down here at intersection of crotch and inseam and go ahead and trace that. Now, you want to make sure you're pressing nice and hard and that you're using a needle point tracing wheel when you do this. And notice I'm going kind of back and forth, and that helps you give a little more control. Okay. And there we are. We've traced the whole crotch seam. Now let's not forget these important, our hip line and crotch line. So let's intersect or trace off hip line where it intersects with our center back crotch, and then also our crotch line where it intersects here. There we go. And now notice this is a curve until I get to the knee. Okay? So I'm going to come down to my knee and I'm going to trace off where knee intersects with my inseam. And then I'm going to trace off all the way from knee up to the crotch following that line. Okay, a couple more things. Now we have our crease line, which also is our grain line. I'm going to trace that off where it intersects with my waist. I'm going to trace it off where it intersects with my hip line, and I'll trace off hip line there where it intersects with this crease line. Come down, trace off your crotch line where it intersects with crease line, and then trace off the crease line where it intersects with crotch line. Down here to your knee, trace off your knee line where it intersects with the crease line, and then also the crease line where it intersects with the knee line. Okay, that should be good. So let's go ahead and we can take the draft off of the Oaktag. Okay, fold that out of the way for a minute. And now now you should be able to see probably, if the camera can pick it up, all the perforations from where I used the tracing wheel. Okay, so basically now what I'm doing is I'm playing connect the dots. So let's grab our rulers. You'll need your yardstick, your clear plastic ruler, and your curve ruler. Okay, I like to do my straight lines first, and I'm going to start by putting in my hip line, crotch line, knee line, and ankle line. I like to do my hip line, crotch line, knee line in red. It doesn't matter, you can just do it in pencil, you don't have to do it in red. So here's my hip line. Here's my crotch line. Remember to intersect all your lines. And then here's my knee line. One more line I like to do in red, and that is my crease line. So a crease line starts at waist and it intersects each of these lines. And because we don't have a ruler long enough, I had you mark each of those lines so it makes it easier to trace it. Just line those up and true it. And up and down. There we go. Okay, continue with my straight lines. I'm going to come here at the hem, and I'm going to mark that. I'll need a longer ruler for some of these, so I'm going to go ahead and do my darts. I'm using my shorter one. There. So I'm going to mark the center fold line of my darts. And now I'm going to tee off at the tip of my dart. Create my dart tip. And now I can connect that up here to create my dart legs. Go. I also have a notch here that's 2 inches above my hip line. I'm going to mark that. And then crotch, remember that's pretty straight and then it curves up. So I'm going to go ahead and connect that. Until it curves. And here it's also pretty straight until it starts to curve, so I can draw on some of that. Remember at intersection and back, center back, we want to square out for about a 1/2 inch, so I'm going to do that. You don't want to end up with a point, center back. Okay. Here I know that from my hemline through knee, through crotch, the hip line is a straight line. So let's go ahead and connect those points. And here as well, from hem, this is my inseam, from the hem of the pant to the knee line, that's also a straight line, so I can connect there. Okay. Let's take our curve ruler. I'm now going to finish my inseam and find the correct curve that matches from knee up to the intersection of inseam and crotch. That looks good right there. Let's mark that. Okay. Let's finish our crotch seam here in the back. I'm going to blend from here back to where I already started to draw my crotch in. There we go. Okay. Now here is also a straight line. Draw that in. Okay. And then we remember this notch from this. So here's my hip line, the notch that's 2 inches above it. If I place 11 on that line with the large part of my curve ruler facing up, and then just move this part out until I hit my perforations there, I'll have the same exact curve as I had on my draft. There we go. And now I just need to do the waist. I'm going to find the correct curve here. And here. There we go. Okay. So let's put some, we're going to cut this out in just a minute. We want to make sure we have all the information on here. So I'm just going to give myself some guidelines here. Okay, this is our back with trouser. Sloper. Okay, it's a size 10. And then put your name and the date. Okay. So let's go ahead and cut this out. Remember, cutting out, keep it flat on the table. You might have to untape it as well now to make it easier to cut. So you can untape your 4 corners of it if you already haven't already. So when cutting out, keep it flat on the table. Keep your scissors flat on the table, and then go ahead and cut. Now, let's hole punch. We're going to hole punch at every intersection here of your crease line, knee line, crease line, and crotch line, crease line, and hip line. Also the 2 dart tips. Remember, don't make a huge hole in here, but also you need to be able to get the tip of your pencil through. Okay, we're also going to notch. At the hem, you're going to notch your crease line. Both sides of your knee line. Okay. The side of your crotch line that's on side seam, you will notch, not the side that's at the actual crotch. Okay. Hip line, both sides of hip line, you will notch. Okay. The top of your crease line at waist, go ahead and notch. Your dart legs and your fold line of your darts, notch all of those. And notch the notch that's 2 inches above your hip line. Okay. Now, this is a pretty long sloper. To make it a little more easier to transport, if you would like, you do not have to do this. But I find this makes life easier. Go ahead and score across your knee line, like so. Okay, now that you've scored it, you can go ahead and crease. Now we never ever crease our Oaktag. This is the one instance where we do it, because creasing it can ruin it. But in this case, this is a straight line, and you can easily fold this and unfold it. It works out perfect. If you've done this, go ahead while it's creased, take your notcher and notch right on your crease line. Okay. So there is the back trouser sloper, traced off in Oaktag and ready to go. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and do the front one. Alright, so we're going to take the Oaktag, place it down on your table. Remember, you need a long enough and big enough one for the front pant panel you're going to do. And then go ahead and tape this down, all 4 corners. Alright, once you have that taped down, go ahead and take your pant draft or your trouser draft, and we're going to do the front trouser this time. So again, you can see through your pattern paper and make sure that this is on the Oaktag, nice and straight. It's not going off the Oaktag anywhere. Again, you don't want to trace it and find out part of it's not traced off because it was hanging off the Oaktag. Okay, once you have that in place, go ahead and tape it down. Alright, now we're all taped down and we're ready to trace off our front trouser leg. Okay, so let's again start here at intersection of our hem and side seam this time. And just need to do an intersection of the side seam and intersection of hem. Come across the hem to your crease line. Trace off the crease line where it intersects with the crease line, or trace off the hem line where it intersects with the crease line, and then crease line where it intersects with hem line, and then at the inseam, hem line where it intersects with the inseam, and inseam where it intersects with hem line. Okay, come up your inseam, trace off your knee line where it intersects with the inseam, and then your inseam where it intersects with the knee line. This is kind of a curved section, so we're going to trace off that whole rest now. Okay, all the way up to the crotch. There we go. Now, remember our crotch is nice and curved, so we're going to actually trace off that whole curve. And it's straight here, but I'll just trace it up all the way. This is already there. Okay, let's do our waistline. So I'm going to start here at intersection of side seam and waistline, and go ahead and trace your whole waistline. Okay, don't forget our darts. So dart tips, intersection of the fold line through the dart tip, the dart legs and the fold line that intersect with the waist. Okay, so that's all done. Come here at side seam. We're going to trace off the notch 2 inches up from hip line for intersects with side seam. We're going to trace off just the top portion of the side seam where it intersects with the waist. And then here it's all straight, so intersection here of side seam and that notch. Intersection of hip line and side seam. Come down, okay, so crotch line where it intersects with the side seam. Keep moving down, knee line and side seam intersect. Trace off both of those, and then we got back to where we started at the ankle or the side seam and hem. Let's not forget to do where our knee intersects the crease line and where the crease line intersects the knee. Also at crotch, crease line and crotch line intersection trace off. And then intersection of hip line and crease line. Mark those. And then again, if we did this right, this crease line goes right up through the center of that dart. Okay? So, that should be everything. We can go ahead and remove our trouser draft. Alright, so let's go ahead and true this draft. And I like to start with my straight lines, and I'm going to, with a red, I'm going to mark my hip line, crotch line, knee line, okay, also let's do the crease line. That intersects all the way from waist down to hem. It should go right up through the center of that dart closest to center front. Okay, I don't need to bring that line all the way up because I'll have a black line representing my center dart, and I know that the two merge there. Okay, so let's continue. I'm going to do my hemline. Okay, I can do my darts. So the center fold line of each of the darts. The dart tips where they intersect with that fold line. and then the dart legs where they intersect with the waist. Okay, I know this crotch is pretty straight up to a point, so I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler to draw on that part until it starts to curve. Intersection of center front and waist, we want to square out for 1/2 inch, because we don't want a point. Okay, I have this notch 2 inches up for my hip line. Let's mark that. Good. Okay, now I know this line is straight all the way up to that notch, so I can go ahead and draw that in. So from hemline to hip line, let's draw on that. And hip line to that notch. And I also know that on my inseam that this line is straight from my hemline to my knee. So I can go ahead and draw that in as well. Alright, so it's pretty much curves I have left. So I have better accuracy, I'm going to untape my Oaktag. Skip it around. Okay, I'm going to use my curve ruler. Let's draw in this inseam all the way through crotch. Find the curve of the ruler that matches your perforations from your tracing wheel. Once you have that, go ahead. Okay, through the rest of our crotch. Okay. Our hip curve, remember if we have the fat end of the curve ruler facing up, put 11 on that notch 2 inches above our hip line, and bring our hip curve over until we hit our mark at waist. That will give us the same curve, so let's draw that in. And now, let's do the waist. Again, you just have to find the right curve that matches your perforations. There should always be a right curve. It's pretty straight, that dart. Alright, so now it's traced off. Let's put some information on here. So this is our front trouser. Sloper. It's a size 10. Put your name and the date. Okay, let's cut it out. Alright, now let's cut out. Let's go ahead and notch the crease line at hem. Notch your knee line at side seam, crotch line at side seam, hip line at side seam, notch 2 inches above hip line at side seam. Notch your dart legs in fold line of your darts at waist. Notch hip line at crotch. Do not notch your crotch where it intersects with your crotch there. Your crotch line and your crotch don't intersect that, or don't notch that. Knee line, also notch. Use your awl and go ahead and mark the tip of your darts where your crease line intersects with your hip line, crotch line, and knee line. And again, you do not have to do this, but if you'd like to make it easier for these to transport, go ahead and score your knee line all the way across. Fold it. And then you can also notch the crease line where it intersects there at knee. Okay, these are the only slopers that you'll be creasing like that if you decide to do it. No other slopers should you be creasing like this. So, there is your front trouser panel. Okay, so that is the front trouser panel all done and cut in Oaktag. And here's both of them together. Okay. Once they're both done, you want to check it and make sure everything lines up. So I'm going to take my front, let it over my back, and make sure, starting at waist, that my two waists line up at side seam, and also that my notches line up all the way down, which they do, to hem. That looks good. And then same thing at crotch, at hem to knee line, crotch lines up. Okay? And there it is.